Hello, I'm Jeffrey Hall, and welcome to Japan Matters. Today we'll be talking about the big surprise of the 2024 Tokyo gubernatorial election. An outsider candidate named Ishimaru Shinji, who was popular on YouTube, managed to come in second place, getting hundreds of thousands of more votes than the major opposition party-backed candidate. And this was really a shock to a lot of people in traditional media and in the traditional political parties. And his future is now very bright, with a lot of people talking about him maybe running in other elections, maybe even starting his own new political party. So I thought I'd like to make a video explaining how he became popular, as well as some of the criticisms that exist on the internet from people on both the political left and the political right who see him as a bit of a threat. However, before we get to the details of Ishimaru's rise, I'd like to share a short video clip with you. This is a clip that went viral on the Japanese internet. The video itself received over 1 million views, and it is from a sort of debate of Ishimaru versus Himasora Akane, who is an anti-feminist YouTuber. This anti-feminist YouTuber doesn't show his face in the video, he just appears via Zoom. And this video shows how Ishimaru is willing to engage with or even debate people that mainstream politicians would just ignore. But in this case, you have this clash between two popular internet personalities, and it's not about politics, it's about manga.
いいですか、石丸さん、鬼滅の刃でちょっと質問したいんですけど、読まれてますか？
一通り読みましたけど、はい。
一通り。じゃあ、上限の鬼で誰が好きですか？
誰？
上限の鬼で誰が好きですか？
赤座。
赤座っていうと、名前は？
名前？
赤座の違う名前あるでしょ。赤座は鬼になった名前で。
なんていう漫画ですか、ひまささん。俺も一回ちょっと検索していいですか。なんていう漫画ですか。
鬼になった名前で？
鬼滅？
赤座の別名？
別名。赤座に別名があることをご存知ない？
すみません。記憶ないです。
赤座に別名があることをご存知ない？
ご存知ないというか、忘れてるというか。
For those of you who are not aware of a lot of Japanese popular culture, they're talking about Demon Slayer, a series of manga and anime that has been globally popular for the last few years. And Ishimaru had mentioned in a speech that he liked that series, so this YouTuber was quizzing him on details to see if he really was a fan of the manga. I myself have watched the anime series, and I didn't know this guy's second name, but it turns out if you Google it, you can find it out, and maybe if you have a photographic memory, you already knew it. This is basically a quiz over minor trivia, but Ishimaru doesn't leave the show. He stays on, and he continues to engage in this so-called debate.
鬼滅の刃読んで上限の鬼を赤座以外一人も覚えてないっていうのがちょっと僕信じられないんですけど。
弁護士さんいける。鬼滅の鬼刃読みました？上限の鬼覚えてます？でも弁護士さんも上限の鬼覚えてないって。
漫画を2万冊読むぐらい愛してて、新成人に対して送る言葉に鬼滅の刃を選ぶのに、上限の鬼の名前が赤座しか出てこないんですか？
はい。
へえ。
It actually goes on for almost an hour in a similar manner, but you get the point from this clip, really. It wasn't anything to do with actual politics or policies. It was a debate about manga trivia. And to a lot of Ishimaru's fans, he came out more positive than his opponent by showing that he's kind of like a normal person who doesn't remember all the details in comic books. The two faced off against each other in the gubernatorial election, with Ishimaru getting over 1.6 million votes, and the anti-feminist YouTuber getting slightly over 100,000. Okay, with that little introduction out of the way, let's find out how Ishimaru rose from being a banker to YouTube's favorite local politician. Our story begins in 1982 with Ishimaru Shinji being born in Hiroshima Prefecture. He then goes on to enter Kyoto University, one of the most competitive universities in Japan, one of the best, where he graduates with a degree in economics. And like other graduates of elite universities in Japan, he went on to get an elite job as a banker working for Mitsubishi UFJ. And during his career, he worked as a strategist, but also, as you can see from his LinkedIn page, he spent a few years working in New York as well. Then he decided to come back to Japan and pursue a career in politics. His choice of a place to run was his old hometown, Akitakata, a small city in Hiroshima Prefecture. As you can see from this information on Wikipedia, its population is about 26,000 people. If you're wondering how big of a city that is, and you're not from Japan, I challenge you to Google for cities with a population of about 26 or 27,000 in your own country. I did for the United States, where I came from, and I couldn't really recognize the names of any of those small cities. It's actually, in some cases, they're called villages in the United States. But in Japan, this is administratively a city, and its big historical claim is going back hundreds of years when it was politically relevant as the birthplace of a famous warlord. This warlord's name is Mori Motonari, who was quite significant in the Sengoku period. If you're a fan of that period of history, you may have heard of him. Or if you play video games like Sengoku Basara or Shogun Total War, you may also be aware of the Mori clan. But that was many, many years ago, and by 2020, the city had declined quite a bit. So much so that its political leadership was caught up in corruption scandals. It turned out that a former justice minister and his wife had been paying money to politicians around Hiroshima Prefecture, and the mayor of Akitakata City was one of them. This created an excellent opportunity for young Ishimaru, who wanted to run as an outsider candidate in his old hometown. He was just 37 years old compared to his 66-year-old opponent, the deputy of the former mayor, basically somebody tied to the dirty image of the old politics of the mayor who had received bribes. It's very easy to understand why voters would have found him appealing. Here was a young man unaffiliated with the major parties who had an elite background, working for one of the best banks in the world, having gone to one of the best universities in Japan. And usually people like this don't go back to their rural communities. They continue to work in their elite fields. But this young man was coming back and offering an optimistic future for the city. Ishimaru won decisively, getting 8,000 votes compared to his opponent's 5,000 votes. It's easy to understand how this happened, but simply winning a mayoral election in a town like this as an outsider isn't going to get you the kind of power you'd think you'd have, especially because the city council, which has to vote on various decisions, was made up of old political insiders, some of them friends of the old mayor and the guy that Ishimaru had defeated in the election. Very early in Ishimaru's term as mayor, an event would occur that would lead to the souring of his relationship with some of the members of the city council. But it would also make him go viral on the Japanese internet, turning him into a national personality that would have the kind of following to attract millions of views on YouTube and run for governor of Tokyo. On September 25th, 2020, Mayor Ishimaru tweeted that there was a member of the city council who had been snoring for 30 minutes during that day's session. He wanted to call attention to voters that this kind of behavior was going on in their city council. It should be noted that in the world of Japanese politics, the idea of sleeping on the job is something that the media tends to give a lot of attention to when they want to get a lot of views on social media or get ratings on television shows. And if you Google the words for sleeping city council or prefectural council member, you'll find various videos where the media goes to council meetings and then shames politicians who get paid very high salaries yet seem to be sleeping in the middle of their sessions. And usually this results in an apology from the politicians. The politician in question did send an apology email to the mayor, but members of the city council were not happy about the fact that he was sharing negative information about members on his social media account. They summoned him to a closed-door meeting in which they complained about this incident. They told him to stop making noise before the election. They provided additional context of the sleeping incident, and they told him that they don't want to be his enemies, so he should back down, or else perhaps he said they would oppose his policies. He considered this in his Twitter post a form of intimidation. But Ishimaru didn't back down in this situation. Instead, he fought back in a very public manner, using social media and live-streamed city council meetings to seek out confrontation with the city council members that he believed had intimidated him. And these clips would be viral sensations on the Japanese internet. You can get a general sense of the online reaction to this, which was quite positive, by watching this short clip from a trailer of an upcoming film that dramatizes Ishimaru's story of this confrontation with the city council. Ishimaru is the young hero. His opponents, the old and lazy establishment. This story of this young politician taking on the city council members who were, in fact, mostly over 60, became the story of Ishimaru, his character on the internet. And in live stream after live stream of the city council, he would create moments that would be YouTube clippable, where he would respond in very aggressive ways to what he considered the lazy, rude, or obstructive behavior of city council members. For example, there were viral clips in which he told city council members, "Many parts of this don't make sense in Japanese," insulting their language ability. Another phrase that went viral was when he told a city council member that their written document would get points deducted if it were a middle school essay. People across Japan watched these videos and really started liking Ishimaru. They saw him as a righteous truth teller. They saw him as taking on the establishment, not just the politicians, but also when the media would take the side of the city council on some issues, they would see the media as unfair against him. And another important thing was that he was very open to collaboration with YouTube channels. So he would start appearing on various YouTube channels, furthering his growth as a social media personality, but also bringing them views. As Ishimaru's internet popularity grew, so did the popularity of his city's official YouTube channel, which shared various videos of his speeches as well as city council meetings. It would grow to become the most subscribed local government YouTube channel in the country. Meanwhile, the city council was fighting back against Ishimaru. They issued a statement in which they denied ever having properly intimidated him. They had just said they criticized him and said that he shouldn't be causing trouble. And they also denied that the member who had fallen asleep had done so on purpose. The so-called sleeping politician was named Takeoka Takafumi, and he said that the sleeping incident had been caused by illness. He would actually be re-elected by the city's voters in November, just a few months after the incident. And as this became popular on the internet, he and his family allegedly received threatening phone calls from fans of the mayor. Takeoka later revealed details about his health condition, saying that he had actually suffered from a stroke. In a press conference, he announced that he had suffered from a cerebral infraction. I'm not really sure the details of this medical condition. I'm not a real doctor, but that sounds quite serious. And he says that he submitted a doctor's report to the mayor. The mayor says that he shredded the report without looking at it because it was private medical information that had been handed to him by somebody who was not Takeoka. Another version of the medical report with some private information removed was distributed to the city council, and they seem to have believed the story about this medical condition, and so they sided with Takeoka and not the mayor on this issue. However, in the YouTube comment section of the news report about the shredding of the medical report, the top comments were harshly critical of Mr. Takeoka, telling him that he should just quit his job if he is so sick. After all, that would just be a waste of taxpayer money for a sick person to be a politician. When I see comments like this, it's not very hard to believe that this person was under an enormous amount of stress from the negative attention being brought upon him, and it might even be true that he did receive threatening phone calls to his household. One account from a tabloid magazine quotes a city council member who said that Mr. Takeoka had serious problems after his June 2022 press conference about his medical condition. He started receiving unsolicited items via cash on delivery to his address, and also voicemail messages saying, "I'll kill you." They also mentioned that he would vomit when he drank alcohol because of this, and his complexion worsened. The alleged harassment and abuse extended to other city council members and was so serious that the city had to remove their names and contact information from its website. Ishimaru disavowed any actions by people who were making threats or doing other things, and he also made social media posts expressing doubt about the reality of this so-called medical report. For example, in this post, he notes that it seems a bit strange that a stroke would be the same as falling asleep. He'd Googled it, and according to his Google knowledge, falling asleep isn't the same symptoms as having a stroke. So a lot of his followers to this day have doubts about whether or not this medical report was accurate or whether or not it was created to make excuses for a sleeping politician. I'm not a medical doctor. I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what happened. But there is one thing that is clear, and that is that Mr. Takeoka died in early 2024 at the age of 68, which is pretty young for someone in a country where men tend to live into their 80s. If you search about Ishimaru on Japanese social media, you'll come across various posts that seem to imply that Ishimaru and his supporters were in some part responsible for this man's death. However, the cause of death has not been reported in the media. In this video, I won't go into the details of whether or not Mr. Ishimaru achieved all the things he set out to do as mayor of a small city. I will note that he claimed to have achieved most of his goals, although his opponents will argue otherwise. What is important to note is that the social media videos of his confrontations with city council members had made him a national celebrity. Many of these clips were created by third-party accounts that edited the videos in ways that showed Ishimaru in a very positive light. Ishimaru was so popular on social media that fan channels that shared clips of him were popular in their own right. It's possible that some of the creators of these channels may not have been huge fans of his politics, and may have just been seeking more views and subscribers. In July 2024, Tokyo was going to have a gubernatorial election. The governor of Tokyo runs in a district that has over 13 million residents. Even if you don't come in first place in such an election, finishing in the top pack can generate a huge amount of attention in the media and on the internet. This is when Mr. Ishimaru threw his hat into the ring. He announced that he would not seek re-election as mayor because he wanted to change the nation as governor of Tokyo. This created a lot of excitement on the internet. In Ishimaru's final 2-hour YouTube livestream as mayor of Agitakata City, well-wishers donated 3.28 million yen or over $20,000 in super chat donations. According to his Wikipedia page, this is the highest ever one-day amount of super chat income generated by a YouTube channel. In fact, when I looked it up, this made the city's channel outrank some major VTubers in the June 2024 Super Chat income rankings for Japan. The money in question presumably went to the city, not to Mr. Ishimaru. During the Tokyo gubernatorial election campaign period, mainstream media outlets tended to focus on the incumbent, Governor Koike, and her opposition party-backed opponent, Renho. However, Ishimaru was included among the 4 candidates that actually received considerable media coverage, even though most expected it to be a race between Koike and Renho. Meanwhile, on YouTube, various channels featured video interviews with Ishimaru that topped over 1 million views. When he was delivering speeches on the street or at indoor venues, the audiences were huge, and videos of those speeches had rather large view counts on YouTube as well. There was clearly a lot of online buzz about him, but it remained to be seen if that actually translated into real votes. When the votes were counted, few people were shocked that Governor Koike was re-elected. Incumbents usually have the advantage in Tokyo gubernatorial elections, especially when there are not major scandals that anger the general public. Ishimaru came in a distant second place, but it was a very surprising result because he got more votes than the candidate backed by the left-wing opposition parties. Exit polls show that Ishimaru excelled in 2 ways. He gained a large share of unaffiliated votes, and he also got a very big slice of the youth vote. Unlike, say, the United States, where national elections involve a battle over a small percentage of people sitting on the fence, Japan has a huge number of unaffiliated voters. Polls find that the number of voters who support no major political party is often over 30%, sometimes close to 50%. As I'm making this video in July 2024, a poll by Japan's national broadcaster NHK found that 47.2% of voters directly stated they support no political party, with another 6.1% offering no answer. The ruling party only had 28.4% support, with the so-called main opposition party receiving just 5.2% support. In such a situation, politicians strive to win the support of what Japanese call the floating vote, or at least hope that these disillusioned voters stay home on election day. Ishimaru Shinji was the perfect candidate for the disillusioned and unaffiliated voters. He told voters he was running against the normal career politicians as a true independent. People who Googled him could find neatly edited Ishimaru versus City Council videos that depicted him as a heroic outsider taking on decrepit and dishonest establishment politicians. His platform offered an optimistic but very vague plan that would use data to analyze inefficient spending programs, increase government transparency, and provide new opportunities for business. He also aimed to fix the population and economic imbalance between Tokyo and the rest of the country. Concrete details on how this would happen were not provided. This appealed to politically tuned-out voters who simply distrusted and disliked Japan's established ruling and opposition parties. The media environment of YouTube also helped make videos about Ishimaru get far more views than videos related to the other candidates in the election. The Asahi Shimbun's post-election analysis noted that Ishimaru's internet strategy helped bring in volunteers, money, and votes. Various YouTube channels had formed what they called a symbiotic relationship with Ishimaru. If they shared videos about him or interviewed him, it meant more views. And if their channels were monetized, more income. Their article stated that about 700 videos about Ishimaru were distributed on YouTube within a week after the campaign officially started. They collectively gained more than 120 million views. Individual donations for his campaign totaled about 270 million yen, or $1.68 million, and more than 5,000 people volunteered to work on his campaign. This is a huge number of volunteers for someone who claimed to be running without the backing of established political parties. It was truly remarkable that a YouTube-famous mayor of a small city had come in second place in a Tokyo election. The mainstream media, including television stations, wanted to ask Mr. Ishimaru for his reaction to the surprising result. However, in the immediate aftermath of the results, his live television interviews struck many viewers as rather odd. When faced with open-ended questions about his impressions of the election or how he viewed himself as different from typical politicians, he reacted in a manner that seemed quite hostile. He told the mainstream media that they had unfairly not given him enough coverage, and basically refused to give answers to questions that he deemed to be stupid or poorly researched. I can understand his feelings. Maybe he actually thought he had a chance to win, but felt frustrated that the mainstream media had put so much focus on the two candidates they assumed would be fighting for first and second place. However, I found his response to the media to be quite off-putting. I don't mean to brag, but I've been interviewed on live television too, and it's pretty common to encounter questions that one might consider lackluster or perhaps even poorly researched. In such circumstances, I've tried my best to steer my answer in a direction towards information I think is valuable, rather than become combative towards the journalists asking the questions, who are often overworked and can't really be blamed for occasionally asking questions that aren't perfect. However, a confrontational or even hostile attitude towards the mainstream media might actually play well with Ishimaru's online fans. Since his days as mayor, he has depicted some mainstream media outlets as unfair towards him, so some of his online followers probably already distrusted establishment media just as much as they distrusted establishment politicians. On the other hand, people who were not aware of his online reputation and had not seen cool Ishimaru versus the city council videos were somewhat surprised to see a second-place political candidate acting in such an abrasive manner towards the media. It's no exaggeration to say that Japan is a country where politeness is valued, but it's also a country where people often complain about power harassment, situations in which people in positions of power are abusive towards others. Some netizens saw Ishimaru's attitude towards reporters as similar to their own experiences in toxic workplaces where bosses mistreat workers. There were also social media posts that made fun of Ishimaru's combative style of speaking that went viral. For example, a tweet showing a hypothetical situation where Ishimaru goes to Subway and orders a BLT, but refuses to answer a question about what kind of bread he'd like for his sandwich. The conversation becomes an endless loop of him insisting he's already made his order and no other questions are necessary. As I said before, BLT. What type of bread? I've already told you, BLT, and so on. It received millions of views and even got a reaction from Ishimaru, who claimed to find it amusing and insisted he was capable of quickly ordering a sandwich at Subway. This style of standoffish speech was dubbed Ishimaru syntax by internet users, and there has been a lot of discussion about it. This popular topic even attracted the attention of Toyo Keizai, a business journal. On July 12th, they ran an article that explored the question of whether Ishimaru's style of speaking would be effective in the business world. It concluded that this kind of aggressive speech, which seems to aim for an absolute win over one's opponent, is likely to backfire. The author contrasted Ishimaru's approach with that of two great Japanese businessmen, the founders of Panasonic and Kyocera. It stated that these great men had taught that business doesn't succeed without a selfless mindset, and that truly logical thinkers understand this. It noted that these individuals can discard their pride and apologize if necessary, and can also make considerations to let the opponent feel superior. It's fine to imitate Ishimaru's syntax for fun, the article says. However, if it's for feeling superior, stop. The fundamental principle in business is to understand the other person's perspective. In other words, don't be like Ishimaru. As Ishimaru's second-place finish became big news, he also drew the attention of people who strongly disagreed with him for political reasons. His popularity among the young and the politically unaffiliated was taking away votes from their preferred candidates. For example, people on the political right saw him as too progressive on some issues. During his time as mayor, he had spoken about respecting the rights of sexual minorities and respecting diversity. He'd also promoted a talk by prominent Japanese feminist Ueno Chizuko. In the Tokyo election, Ishimaru had taken a position in favor of memorializing Koreans who were massacred in the aftermath of the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923, a stance that put him at odds with nationalists and historical revisionists. Also, right-leaning netizens believed Ishimaru was in favor of mass immigration, although I haven't seen much information indicating strong support for such an opinion. Additionally, his past affiliation with an international bank, support for renewable energy such as solar power, and promotion of vaccines while he was mayor were seen as negative points by netizens on the right who like to use words like globalist. There were also negative reactions to Ishimaru from the political left. They had hoped that their candidate, Renho, would bring together voters dissatisfied with the conservative status quo, but not only had Ishimaru received a significant number of votes, he'd also surpassed Renho. It was embarrassing for them. I have also seen many posts from left-leaning social media accounts that express shock at the ignorance of voters who would vote for Ishimaru instead of Renho, something they saw as helping Governor Koike win. In effect, they were throwing their votes away and splitting the opposition and making Koike get a guaranteed victory. Another reason why the political left dislikes Ishimaru is that his political views on most matters seem to be conservative. Japanese media outlets have reported that Ishimaru even flirted with the idea of seeking support from the Ishin Party, sometimes called the Japan Innovation Party. This party is a center-right pro-business political party that is relatively new to Japan, and like Ishimaru, it has some socially progressive views, but also a lot of overlap with the conservative LDP. Part of Ishimaru's platform as a candidate reflected how he'd governed as mayor. He wanted to revitalize the city by looking at spending data and cutting funding to programs he deemed wasteful. One could compare him to a private equity finance bro whose brilliant plan for growth is cutting costs. As mayor, he'd cut funding for his city's local arts museum, public toilets, and its tourism association, since apparently those did not have much economic value. Another issue that Ishimaru's critics have spotlighted is the fact that he didn't just rely on the grassroots support of his social media followers. Media reports have indicated that Toriba Hiromichi, the founder of Japanese coffee chain Dotor, helped fund the Ishimaru campaign. Toriba is apparently conservative, and netizens have taken note of the fact that he played golf with former Prime Minister Abe. Mr. Toriba also helped arrange the help of Fujikawa Shinosuke, a legendary campaign manager who helped many politicians over the years, including Ishin Party candidates in recent elections. He's known as the god of elections because of his skills that have helped win over 100 election campaigns. Another key member of the Ishimaru campaign was Oda Zenko of the LDP, Japan's ruling conservative party. Like Toriba, Oda was a friend of former Prime Minister Abe. His Wikipedia page stated that he remained a member of the LDP while helping run Ishimaru's independent political campaign. This was citing a video Oda uploaded to YouTube, but has since apparently deleted. Another controversial person who seemed to support the Ishimaru campaign was Tamura Shigenobu, a conservative commentator who used to be part of the LDP's Policy Research Council. More recently, Tamura has been the newscaster for Patriot TV, the YouTube channel of a newspaper affiliated with the Unification Church. Yes, you heard that right, the Unification Church, the far-right Korean religious group that supported the LDP for years and became a major news topic after the assassination of former Prime Minister Abe. When netizens started spreading claims that Tamura was riding in Ishimaru's campaign car, the Ishimaru campaign issued a denial on Twitter stating that such a thing had never happened. Netizens quickly replied with a photo of Tamura standing next to Ishimaru on top of his campaign car, prompting the Ishimaru campaign to apologize and admit he did stand on top of the car at least once. The Twitter drama over Tamura also involved Hiroyuki, the owner of 4chan, who said that Tamura's YouTube channel is run by the Unification Church. Tamura replied that it is not run by the church, and legally speaking he might be right, but many observers consider it an affiliated media organization that could be called a mouthpiece for the church's political views. It is my understanding that Tamura did not have an official position within the Ishimaru campaign, but he was a vocal supporter of it on Twitter, sharing promotional images about campaign speeches, and this caused a lot of negative reactions online from people who noticed it. On the surface, Ishimaru was running what seemed like a grassroots campaign against the political establishment, saying that he was going to sweep out career politicians. He did this, though, while having prominent members of that political establishment manage or support his campaign, which has caused some people on the internet to spread a theory that he was actually some kind of pawn of the LDP or the conservative establishment. I don't think this is true. I think he is just someone who wanted to win political office and was seeking out talented and skilled people to run his campaign, even if it did ultimately make him look bad to some people. Another popular criticism of Ishimaru came from an unlikely source, Kawai Yusuke, Japan's Joker politician. In an uncharacteristically serious Twitter post, he shared what he called his candid thoughts on fellow gubernatorial candidate Ishimaru. It's pretty long, but it's quite interesting and worth summarizing, and for the sake of brevity, I will refer to him as the Joker from now on. The Joker didn't believe in Ishimaru's reputation as this young good person who fights against old evils. He saw someone who was ambitious, cunning, authoritarian, and fond of prestige. As a fellow Kyoto University graduate, the Joker stated that many graduates of that school are ambitious, authoritarian, prestige-loving, and title-obsessed. He argued that it is a university that demands such a personality to gain admission. He then went on to question why someone who worked so prominently in an international elite bank would want to leave New York and become mayor of a small rural city. The Joker suspected Ishimaru was more interested in the title of mayor rather than the city itself. He went on to argue that Ishimaru had used his keen analytical skills to determine that the city's mayoral election could be used for career advancement. The Joker did not believe that Ishimaru truly wanted to improve Akitakata City. Instead, he believed that Ishimaru intentionally orchestrated conflict with the city council members so that he could gain a reputation as a young good mayor fighting against old evil council members. It should be noted that the Joker had served as a city council member in Saitama Prefecture, and during that time he apparently actually did normal city council work. His Twitter post said that in his experience as a city council member, he had witnessed the mayor of his city seeking to maintain cooperative relationships with the council. So when the Joker saw Ishimaru's confrontations with city council members, he saw it as something that stirred up drama to get attention on the internet while souring important relationships that would have been necessary for the mayor to seriously implement policies that could help his city. The Joker believed it was all calculated so that Ishimaru could gain enough of a national following so that he could be a candidate in the Tokyo gubernatorial election. He then went on to add that he didn't even believe that Ishimaru expected to win the election because Ishimaru would have realized he lacked the established organizational support to overcome Governor Koike. In the Joker's eyes, Ishimaru was running a campaign with no chance of victory in the hope of drawing more attention to and further advancing his career. The Joker argued that Ishimaru's campaign platform that called for decentralizing Tokyo was just as unrealistic as the joke promises the Joker himself had made on his campaign posters. The Joker characterized Ishimaru's campaign as similar to his own, an unserious election bid aimed at getting more attention. Near the end of his post, the Joker said the following: "I get a somewhat fearful impression from his seemingly good-natured appearance. Am I alone in this? He seems slightly psychopathic or neurotic, and I feel he could be dangerous with power. You might think I'm in no position to criticize, so I'll admit, I possess similar traits. I don't hide that I'm running to gain fame, that's my job. It's because I share similar traits that I sense a similar vibe." He then said he didn't entirely view this as a negative thing, as great historical leaders such as Oda Nobunaga and Tokugawa Ieyasu needed similar traits to rise to the top, and maybe Ishimaru was somebody like that. But he concluded by warning Ishimaru's supporters that these were his opinions of Ishimaru, and that they shouldn't blindly idolize him because that is, in his view, dangerous. The Joker's post seemed to resonate with a lot of people because it was shared by a huge number of Twitter users and received nearly 5 million views. One could argue that this post was even more effective at getting the Joker attention and social media followers than his silly campaign speeches or weird election posters. Another negative evaluation of Ishimaru appears to have come from the voters of Akitakata City. On the same day that Tokyo was voting for a governor, the city was holding an election to decide who would be their next mayor. The candidate who won the election was a local who ran on the platform of seeking harmony and cooperation with the city council rather than conflict. The new mayor has also signaled that he will reverse Ishimaru's policy of allowing content creators to freely edit footage of city council meetings, and might request that YouTube and other platforms remove video clips that could cause misunderstandings. It seems like a lot of voters did not like Ishimaru's behavior and wanted a normal city council and a normal mayor to work together instead of one in which there was a pro-mayor and anti-mayor conflict going on that created drama on social media. So, after reviewing Ishimaru's rise to popularity and some of the criticisms of him that exist on the internet, what is my prediction for his political future? Well, whether you agree with the Joker's opinion on Ishimaru's campaign, it has in fact created new opportunities for career advancement, either as a politician or as a media personality. There has been some talk in the Japanese media of Ishimaru starting his own political party. If he can maintain his online following until the next major election, it's not out of the question. But would it be a big party? Probably not, unless he could convince politicians who belong to other parties to defect to his party. However, bringing in defectors from other parties could also dilute his reputation as a political outsider who's fighting against career politicians. If he were to launch a new party, seeking outsider candidates without ties to major political parties, it's possible he could create an electorally viable small party. Japan's proportional representation voting system creates opportunities for parties to win seats, even if they aren't able to win elections in single-member districts. That's how you have parties like the Communist Party and the NHK Party and others getting seats without actually winning many districts. But is that what Ishimaru wants? To be the leader of some small party? I think that such a position would probably be pretty boring for him. Another possibility is that he could become a media personality. As a YouTuber, he would be able to command a large audience and generate a lot of income while spreading his ideas to his followers. He could also probably continue to be a regular guest on other popular YouTube channels, and maybe even television if he decides to adopt a friendly attitude towards the mainstream media. It's also possible that one of the established political parties would want to recruit him. Perhaps a struggling LDP would want to invite in a young reformer, or maybe the Ishin Party would want a candidate with proven appeal outside of its base in Western Japan. However, such an arrangement would probably involve him taking a subordinate position within a party, and he seems like the kind of guy who wants to lead, not follow. I will conclude by noting that Ishimaru has already hinted that he might try to unseat Prime Minister Kishida in his home district in Hiroshima. This sounds like it would be a difficult task to achieve given the existing LDP organization in that district. However, such a run could, like the recent Tokyo election, provide Ishimaru with lots of media attention and increase his fame, even if he loses. As I've said in other videos, candidates often run in Japanese elections with the intention of losing the vote, but winning attention to other things, such as themselves or political issues that they believe deserve more attention. Maybe a contentious face-off with Kishida could serve as a stepping stone for something more significant. What exactly it would be, I really have no idea. We'll have to look and see in the future. Alright, I'll wrap up the video there. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope that this video provided some ideas of the many different opinions that exist on the internet about Mr. Ishimaru and the possibilities for his future. If you found this video interesting and you would like to watch more content like this, please like and subscribe. I hope to create more content just like this in the future, dealing with complicated issues in Japanese politics and other topics. Anyway, Have a great day, everyone.